Are you ready for a little magic? Well, we have some coming up, and some folks, they're new at it, but they're coming at it from a totally different place right after this. There are folks out there who say, I don't believe in magic, I have no time for it, and so on and so forth. And then there are others who practice the craft. We have two such gentlemen with us today. And it's an unusual combination. It's a father and son team, and they're members of the Cherokee tribe. I'd like to welcome Bobby and Jeremy Nugent to us. Gentlemen, it's good to have you with us.
Glad to be here.
First, a little bit about you. Bobby, how'd you get into this?
It's just been part of our life. We've studied magic. We've had magic in our families. And about 13 years ago, when we were working in the mountains of North Carolina, we didn't have TV, couldn't get reception, got tired of the tapes we had, so we got our magic books back out and got to studying. And I'd show Jeremy a trick, and he'd try to top the trick that I would do, and that was one way of entertaining ourselves.
So you didn't go stark raving mad.
So yeah.
There's only so many ways you can watch Happy Gilmore before you just go to banging your head against the wall, and you got to find something else to do.
Was it an instant attraction for you? I mean, did you recognize the fun that could be had from?
Not at first, because like I said, he was saying, he's been doing magic all his life, and growing up with it, it was, hey, come here, I got something to show you. And it's like, oh, God, no, you're going to make the quarter disappear. It's going to reappear over here. Yeah, it's stuck through the window now. Can I go back to watching TV? And, but eventually I grew into it. But for a while, it was just a total headache.
I don't know of any other Indian folk in the United States performing magic. Are you guys the only two doing it?
As far as we know, we study magicians too, and as far as we have found, we are the only two magicians that work together as father and son, and we're the only Cherokee magicians.
It's an interesting thing to me, always has been, the Indian traditions that exist and the Indian history that's very much alive, but a lot of folks aren't aware of. For example, we have a very large, as you know, Indian population in Oklahoma. And we have a very large population of non-Indians living right alongside them. And what's interesting is I'll bet you money that 99% of the non-Indians don't understand the difference between a stomp and a powwow. And yet, as far as they're concerned, it's just a dance. Mm-hmm. They don't understand the culture. They don't really know the history. Does that trouble you?
Yes, it does. That's part of why we do magic, because that was part of our culture. All Indian tribes had magicians or medicine men. Mm-hmm. And that has died out, and we're wanting to bring it back and preserve it. And that's the reason we use a lot of Cherokee culture, myths and legends in our magic.
Your grandmother, your great-great-great-great-grandmother, I believe it was, walked the Trail of Tears, did she not?
She did. That was Rebecca Nugent.
She was known as the last known living survivor of the Trail of Tears whenever they finally got around to doing interviews and thinking this ought to be something that should be recorded, because whenever that Trail of Tears happened, it wasn't even something worth talking about. It was, oh, we're finally getting rid of the Indian problem. And that bothers us about the loss of history, because whenever they got moved over here, they stripped them of everything. The whole intention of them coming here was to die.
And a lot of folks are under the mistaken impression that there was just one Trail of Tears. There were several.
There was several of them, yes.
But the main one is the one we're talking about here, the one where the thousands of people were driven in. And what the government did, and a lot of folks at home may not be aware of this, what the government did was they farmed out the contracts to drive them here. So they actually didn't do it. They said, okay, fine, we'll have you guys do it. And they'd have these drovers come in and treat the people like animals with whips. And if you were sick or you died or you fell to one side or whatever, they left you. I mean, it's horrible conditions.
Well, if you thought about it from their point of view, say you had 5,000 people that nobody wanted, and everybody wanted them to be killed off and died, and you're paid to move them from here to here, and there's really no guarantee that any of them's going to make it. What would be easier, moving all 5,000 or starting off with 5,000 and ending up with 100? So it just, for them, it was an economically made sense to just kill off as many as they could along the trail, treat them as brutally and rough as that possible because no one wanted them to survive.
It's interesting to me that a lot of folks won't have a $20 bill in their wallet because of Andy Jackson. Still. I mean,
well, that's to the Indians' point of view. That's like walking around with a Hitler bill.
Yeah. Some of the, first of all, your great-great-great-great-grandmothers, and I'll just refer to her from now on as your grandmother rather than do all that, was documented for the WPA back in 1932. And she left so many memories of that drive. And were stories passed down in your family about it?
Not really. That was just a period of time that. That's Rebecca.
That's the first time we've ever seen that photograph of her.
Really?
It was a shameful thing, and it was something that they didn't want to talk about or even discuss. It was like we were telling you earlier about kids were being beaten in schools for speaking Cherokee. And it was such a horrific deal, it was the less said about it, the better, because they didn't want to relive something they were reliving every time they closed their eyes.
So many of the people talked about later, and she did too, in this interview, that they weren't allowed to bring much, just what they could carry, and that was it.
That was it.
So along the way, they didn't have pots to cook in, they didn't have eating utensils, they didn't have anything. And the Indian people were much more sophisticated than a lot of folks knew. They had in their homelands pots and pans and eating utensils, things to cook in. They lost it all.
Dad's got something, a family heirloom that was interesting with him, is that it was an anvil that got carried over. And that was how they was able to make a living, wasn't it? It was blacksmithing whenever they arrived. And but that anvil got carried the entire trail until it arrived here, and it's an anvil about this size, about that tall, and it's like you said, they were only allowed what they can carry and grab, and that got grabbed because they knew they could make a living with it when they.
And conditions were horrible. It wasn't. We're not talking about moving in the summer months. We're talking about moving year round, and they moved a lot in the winter time, and under the worst possible conditions. And so many died because of those conditions, and yet she managed to hang on, and she was, if I understand it, very young.
I think she was 4 years old.
Yeah. He said that her father made leggings for them, which they didn't have, and they didn't have hats, and they were able, when they'd camp at night, the men would go out in hunting parties and hunt and come back, and then they'd use the fur to protect themselves.
Well, it'd be like if they'd come in right now and gotten us and marched us out of here. And what would you have on you right now that you'd be able to survive walking that far a distance? And, that's basically how they got done, and it was whatever they could grab as they were walking out the door to take with them. And
it seems to me that the tribes are the only ones able to keep alive the history of the drive. Is anyone else doing anything to keep alive what happened?
No, it's as far as I can see that it's not. There's, it's if they don't keep it alive or keep the memory of it going, then it'll just be a footnote in the history books and then forgotten about. That's until we started doing this magic and researching our culture. That's how it was presented to me in school. It was like the Cherokees didn't exist until this date, then the Trail of Tears happened, and then here we are in present day Oklahoma, and there's just these gaps in between those three statements. There's nothing there, and that's how I grew up in school, learning about our history.
The one thing we do know is, as with all cultures, the older ones have been dying off at an incredible rate. That means that they took with them the old ways. The language is being lost. Efforts are being made to preserve those. Cherokee people down in Tahlequah have a major program underway to preserve the language.
It seems to be working too. I know of a lot of people that have started trying to learn Cherokee and are learning it again. But that's something I haven't done, is try to learn the language again. And I guess I'll do that one of these days. But right now, I have other interests and just learning the culture. I mean, learning is taking my time.
So it's been a learning experience for you too.
It sure has been.
And you're passing it along to Jeremy.
What I know to Jeremy, yeah.
Jeremy, I mean, I don't mean this in an insulting manner, but
Don't ask me what I know.
no. Have you been surprised with what your father's been able to pass along, the things that he says, you know, you need to know this?
Yeah, he's opened my eyes to a surprising amount of history and culture that I didn't even know existed, and it's really opened the doorways to learning about things that should have been known a long time ago, but just now learning about. And it's there's a whole wealth of knowledge about the Native American culture, or just different cultures, especially around here in Oklahoma, that is it's going to be lost forever if it's not passed down and learned that way. And I'm really kind of grateful that we're being able to learn this, and so we could have something to pass on to the next generation. Because if it just stayed locked away as it was, it's going to be gone forever. And I'm really, I am grateful for it. And
Bobby, you talked about working, I think you said, in construction.
Yes.
So you were making a living in construction and playing with magic on the side, and all of a sudden an idea starts to form about maybe we ought to take this show on the road, if you will.
Yeah.
How did all that come about?
Construction got real slow a few years ago, and I asked Jeremy, I said, come up with something that we can do and will make us some money.
9/11 happened as well.
Yeah, it was 9/11 exactly was what happened, and construction just shut down. So Jeremy told me, he said, well, let's try magic. And at first I laughed about it. You know, we'd done magic all our lives, and he said, no, I'm serious, let's do it as a professional deal and see if we can't get a show together and start performing for people. So that's basically how it come about.
So you put together a show.
Yeah.
That first time in front of people, how did that go?
It went great. We done I worked for Parfab Industries in Inola. We were a steel mill. And so anyway, they were going to have the annual picnic, 4th of July picnic. But they have sister companies, and they're all invited. So we got ready to do our show. We've committed ourselves that we're going to do this show, and we show up, and there's about 1,400 people there. So we do our show, and it went off real well, and we're still doing it, so I guess we done all right. You
do both parlor tricks, street magic, and the big illusions as well?
Yes, we do all of them.
Where do you get your material?
We read, we research, we read a lot of magic books and get a lot of videos and stuff out of England, Great Britain, Australia, Canada. We don't hardly do any American magic, or what we call American magic, magicians that perform in the United States. But we try to take stuff that hasn't been seen in the United States, and we'll look at a trick and see how it's done, and can we either improve on it or change it so much that they don't know that trick, and then we'll perform that. But basically it's ours, because we see a trick, it gives us an idea, but we know how we're going to do this trick, so we just go with our instincts and perform it that way.
Any criticism?
Not lately.
But there was some initially, wasn't there?
yes.
Folks, you were doing the work of the devil?
We had, when we had first started, I told Jeremy, I said, people around us are real superstitious, they're real religious, so we've got to keep our magic toned down. So we done a lot of the sponge rabbit tricks and
Yeah,
stuff.
that was our most how you say, spooky, scariest trick was I had a little rabbit made out of sponge, and I was, look, there's 2 rabbits, now there's 3 rabbits, and we were getting accused of being satanic and performing for kids, and I thought, well, if you're thinking that is evil and bad, then
Let's do what we want to do.
yeah, let's perform the magic that we want to perform and do it the way we want to do it. And if you guys will say that's what it is, then then at least you'll have a reason for saying that's what it is.
You brought a few things with you to share today. Now, this is not all these men do. But what have you got first of all, Jeremy? You got a couple of small things that we can do here at the desk?
Yeah. Here you go. This is we brought you this one because we like to do little displays and artifacts. We were performing in Branson, Missouri, and we had seen the Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum. And while they had a lot of displays and things that you can look at and see, you couldn't touch them. So we thought Oklahoma's got so much of a weird history and myths and stories about it. Oklahoma ought to have its own interactive type of museum where people can touch the exhibits and the exhibits do things themselves. And this is actually a preserved eye in a jar of one of the few women that was executed in Oklahoma for witchcraft.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got her eye, and even today they said if anybody that takes that eye can look through it, they can see things no one else can see.
Oh, really? All right. What else?
So we're going to demonstrate what this thing can do here.
Oh, you've got something you can do. Well, go for it.
So I have here in my hand is a penny, a dime, and a nickel. You'll have to use your imagination.
All right.
We're poor. So we've got a penny, a dime, and a nickel. I want you to take 2 of them.
You want me to pick up 2 coins that I can't see?
Well,
Right.
Okay,
you can
1, 2. Got it.
Okay. So there was the penny, a dime, and the nickel. Which ones did you take?
I got the penny and the nickel.
The penny and the nickel. That leaves the dime. I'm going to toss the dime in the air, and you're going to call it heads or tails.
All right. Heads.
Landed heads. I'm so glad you said that because inside this envelope I have just 1 card and 1 card only. If you can see that in there.
Here, I don't want to drop my change. You'll choose the dime. You'll also call heads. That's not funny. That's pretty good. But it has to be done with the eye present. Is that right?
Well, it helps.
It helps.
You guys ever do anything or work on an illusion and all of a sudden you go, woo?
There's been times. I don't remember that. Basically,
Like
about all the time.
Like the infamous woo trick of Bengali. We will never perform that one again.
So there have been instances, though, that something happened to make your skin crawl.
Yeah. That's just like they say in ventriloquism. They've got a dummy. The dummy will eventually tell you something that you never expected.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's the same as in magic. Sometimes things will go just a little different than what you expected, and
Almost like a Ouija board that nobody's touching.
yeah.
All right.
And
Okay,
that's-
we didn't bring that, but we have that.
Oh.
What do we got here?
You said you won one without that eye, so we just have a set of cards here. There's nothing written on the fronts,
Hold that up where they, yeah, let's get a shot of that.
nothing on the back. All you have to do is just touch whatever card you like.
Just either any card?
Any card.
Okay. That one
You
right
want
there.
that one. You
Yeah.
don't want to change your mind.
No.
You want that card. Because like I said, there's nothing on the front, nothing on these cards, nothing on the backs, but you picked that card. And I knew you were going to pick that card because you picked the only one with, I knew you would choose the 2 of spades written on the back.
All right. Now I'm going to have to ask, how'd you do that? And you're going to say, very well.
Yeah, very well.
That's freaky, man.
And you can keep that.
Well, I knew you would choose the 2 of spades. and that's your website across the bottom.
Yeah,
You
that's a
sneaky.
good, it's a sneaky way of
You
advertising.
sneaky, man.
Actually, we'll do you one better. We'll show you this. I'll take the corner there. Rip the corner off of it, and then just like that, we can just make doubly sure you'll keep that for us.
Okay, I'm buying lunch. What else you got?
Yeah, you said don't show too many tricks on there.
Yeah, I know, but now
You're in it.
Now I'm hooked. I love card tricks. I love when a magician brings out a deck of cards because I want to be fooled. I want the magic to work.
Oh, well, you'll like this one.
All right.
This one is, you heard about the Native Americans having like a medicine bag that they
Oh, yeah.
carry and keep with them. So we have here, and inside this bag, is a little series of coins. Each one of them has a symbol drawn on the top.
Mm-hmm.
Inside is a matchbook, and we have what they've called fetishes. We have a bear, there's an arrowhead, and this one has a shell. And then we have just an old deck of cards. Since you like the card tricks, we'll start off with that. Now, start dealing down the cards, and you can just tell me stop whenever you'd like. You can tell I'm a card sharp by the way I'm dealing them down.
Stop.
Right there?
Right there.
Okay. Memorize that card.
Okay.
Does the camera get it?
Hold on just a second.
Yeah.
Now, remember that card. Now we have here the arrowhead, the bear, and the fetish. If you could, pick two.
Pick two. Okay.
That'll get rid of the shell there. Now place one back. Okay, I got rid of one and you got rid of one. That leaves the arrowhead. So we had the card was the 7 of clubs that you'd picked.
Mm-hmm.
You picked the arrowhead. And last, the coins, I'd like you to shake and drop down on the table, and every one that lands face up, we'll get rid of.
Okay. You don't want me to drop on the table. You're going to drop them.
We'll drop them, and every one that lands tails up, we'll get rid of, like that, until there's only one coin left.
Okay.
I marked the faces of them so you'll be able to see them
Okay,
better.
so just
So
drop them on the table.
Yeah, just shake them and drop them. That way we'll know it's totally random deal. We'll get rid of that one and that one. You've got 4 left. Go ahead and pick them up and try it again.
Do it again.
This way it's to show that you're picking the coin. There's no way I can force nothing on you. Now we're down to 2. Go ahead.
Oh, baby needs a new pair of shoes.
Oh, that leaves the 50-cent piece. So you had the 7 of clubs, the 50-cent piece, and the arrowhead.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of interesting because what we have here is inside this bag is the preserved skull of an Oklahoma outlaw that was killed.
Oh, no.
And he carried a little medicine bag with him, and it was full of his nice little odds and ends. You can get that nice shot on there because if you pry open his mouth, there's something inside there. Could you
I
reach in
see
and
that.
could you reach in there and take that?
Sure, I'll get that. Just pull it out.
Just pull it all out. 'Cause inside that bag was his bag that he carried, his little medicine bag. And inside is a card. Was that the card you picked?
Son of a gun.
There's a coin in that bag, and that was the coin that you left out, and there was the deal that you chose.
And the arrowhead.
And the arrowhead.
Pretty smooth. You did that well. You did that well. We got about 3 minutes. Let me give you back the. I'm intrigued by the head.
His name was Elmer J. McCurdy, and he coined the phrase, "You'll never take me alive," and that's whenever the police shot him. And after that, his body was passed from traveling carnival to traveling carnival until it disappeared. And then when the episode of the $6 Million Man was being filmed in a carnival, they moved a prop, and the prop broke apart, and they said that they discovered that was a real human body, and it was old Elmer. And they was able to use the objects that it was inside of his mouth to trace his way back to Oklahoma. They said it was a souvenir that when people would leave the ride, they would stuff the ticket stubs in his mouth.
You know this show's going to get a lot of criticism. You do know that. There are going to be people writing in, calling in, emailing us, what are you doing with a real head on the set?
But that was a real story.
You guys work with a lot of youngsters, don't you?
Yeah.
How do the kids respond to the stories that you tell about your heritage?
There's not
Through
enough
your magic.
blood. Not enough blood. You guys need to be gorier.
Really?
Yeah, that was,
Kids like
kids like it. We used to have an assistant that worked with us, a roadie that would work behind the scenes, that would pack up our stuff and help us clean them out. And we done a show for kids, and we wanted to do a trick that no magician had ever tried to imitate, and it was Penn and Teller had done the old cut the rope and restore it effect. Well, they used a live snake on stage, live on the David Letterman show. They cut a snake in two and then put them back together. And we figured out how to do it, and we wanted to imitate them and do a little homage to Penn and Teller and do that trick. And we took a snake. Bobby pulled a 5-foot black snake out of a drawing that somebody had made.
Got about 1 minute.
And then we cut the snake, but there was too much blood went everywhere. And then afterwards the roadie said, I quit. This looks like a crime scene. I ain't doing this no more. But the kids loved it. They told us that was the best show ever.
Did you put it back together?
Oh yeah, we healed it up fine. And
Hey guys, thanks for coming by.
Oh,
We
no
appreciate
problem.
it. It's good to
Thank
have you here. We'll see you again down the road, all right? Let us know when you hit the big time.
all righty.
That's all the time we have for this segment of Green Country Perspectives. If you have questions, comments, or program ideas, send them to Perspectives, Public TV, RSU, publictv.org, or call us at 800-823-7210. And don't forget to visit it online at rsupublictv.org. And again, thanks for joining us on RSU Public Television.